Call Me By Your Name stars Timothée Chalamet in his first Oscar-nominated role, and Armie Hammer in another performance that did not get nominated, as he, in my opinion, is the most underrated, overlooked actor in Hollywood, as far as, when it comes to awards buzz, sadly, at this current moment. And the film follows the tale of these two young men named Elio and Oliver, who are in northern Italy, I think. Yeah, sorry. Are in northern Italy in the summer of 1983, and they meet because Oliver has come to help out Elio's father as a research intern and assistant over the entire summer. And during the summer, the two become closer, become friends, and then become just a little bit more than just friends. I never got around to reviewing this film when it came out originally because it took a while for the film to actually get into my theater around the time that it was nominated for an Oscar, and this one was nominated for Best Picture among other awards. You know, it was this movie and Shape of Water, which I will actually do a little bit later down the line. I have it mixed in with my catch-up schedule. Hold on. Excuse me. Also, before I get into my thoughts, I do have to say, it's really hard for me to come up with tags for my video as far as little subtitles, and I couldn't think of anything for this, so because I don't think that I'm very creative or clever, I decided to choose something vague that maybe wouldn't make any sense to the people who haven't seen the movie, but then for the people who have seen it, you may read it and chuckle a little. I don't know. The insecure side of me kind of hopes that it's at least a good title. Now, for those of the uninitiated, you know, the people who've never seen any of my videos whatsoever, the way that I go through breaking down my thoughts on a film is I do a pro and con list, and it's very simple. Pro is everything that I enjoyed about the movie, and then cons are everything that I either found bad or just lacking of a certain quality to them. And I do like to keep my pros and cons separate. However, there are times where some pros and cons will play off of each other very well, and then I will use one of them to transition in the other, whether it's a pro to a con or vice versa. But again, I do try to keep them separate. Okay, there's your little disclaimer. Let's go ahead and get into the review. I want to start by talking about our two lead performances, Chalamet and Hammer. They both give amazing performances, and also, as I mentioned earlier, Chalamet, the younger of the two actors, ended up getting an Oscar nomination for Best Actor last year. But really what made everything work overall, whether it was how their characters interacted off of each other, or just the entire film, a lot of it weighs down on the amazing chemistry between both actors. There was really something devastatingly romantic about their connection, and I feel that anybody can really get into their connection and enjoy it, even if you're not in any way a part of the LGBT community itself. Like, for instance, I'm not, and I still love it. I didn't watch the more intimate scenes and get aroused, but I enjoyed seeing their connection culminate into something more because I grew to care for these characters, and I saw them giving into their desires as a triumph because of that. The take on this story is very hyper-realistic and, you know, so raw and sensual that it's kind of hard to describe this fully if you're telling this to somebody who hasn't seen the film, but it's realistic in a way that the sound design is set up. For instance, you can only hear a conversation to the point that it makes sense if maybe you were the camera, you know, that you're not actually watching from your couch or inside of a movie theater. They actually treat you like you're there, and like you're that close to actually hear what they're saying. There's even a scene where both main characters are talking outside. You know, they're sitting at a table outside, and they keep having to raise their voice because of oncoming traffic. They don't drown out the noises so that you can hear the conversation better. It's just, it comes across extremely natural. And, you know, at the point where this movie takes place, it's during a relaxing countryside summer. It's slow-paced and kind of just like it's wandering, but with a certain purpose to it, because the film is primarily focusing on two guys who themselves are just wandering through the summer, discovering things about themselves that maybe they didn't know about in the first place. And I even loved how the sound design and cinematography made it feel like I was experiencing a truly authentic Italian summer. Call Me By Your Name isn't showcased like most films, and the story doesn't unfold like a typical film, which I did like about this. It felt like it actually broke some of the conventions of screenplay writing. And I mean that there are typical cliches that occur in most scripts, you know, those scenes that have to happen, like a sort of incident that incites a small group of characters, or, you know, bigger than just that small group. And that's usually called the inciting moment, as I've read in some books that I purchased recently, or that one of them was actually a birthday present from my wife. She gave me a book, which is basically like film school, in just a book about this thick, and I got to learn a few new terms that I wasn't originally aware of, so maybe I'll use a couple of those, but I'll also try to describe what exactly they mean. But anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, sometimes you'll have some scripts have a scene that's basically the inciting incident where it affects everybody, or just that group of small people, and even those scenes that are supposed to bridge the gap between first act, third act, second act, whatever, and they don't happen like you would expect in this movie. As I mentioned earlier on that sort of meandering, wandering around vibe that the film gives. Once we see their relationship truly blossom, it becomes this beautiful, beautiful thing that you get the opportunity to experience. And with all of this, and the fact that the film is definitely a slow burn of a film, it helps the emotions sneak up on the audience, and when it becomes more apparent as the summer is coming more to an end, it actually makes things occur, or it makes everything that occurs that much more emotional. I'm also not going to put this next one as a pro, but I do want to go into detail about it because most critics have already commented on the use of flies in the film, and, you know, what the idea of the flies could mean. And I definitely agree with one of the more widely known theories about them, but discussing them would go into spoiler territory. And also, I don't want to recycle the thoughts of somebody else. Like, for instance, Chris Stuckman. He pretty much worded my exact feelings on what they mean in his video, so I don't want to recycle anything that he said in any way. Now, as with every film, there are a few issues, and I do have a couple of cons here. First of all, as far as who they are as characters, I wish we had gotten to know a little bit more about them, mostly for Oliver. Other than a few things that you see and hear about, I didn't really feel like I knew the characters extremely well. You know, I was given enough to feel for them, but not necessarily to become attached. And also, the film's pace definitely wears on your patience after a while, and that can affect the enjoyment of the film. I know for me personally, my feeling on the film and its pace gets better each time I watch it, but so far it's still an issue for me. In the end, I love Call Me By Your Name. It's not a film that I can rewatch multiple times a year, but I've gotten to the point where I make sure that I watch it at least once a year because of how much I appreciate this film, especially on a technical level and just a story level, how the entire story is set up. It's beautifully directed, wonderfully acted, and just a shout out and one last tiny pro. That song, Mystery of Love, by Sufjan Stevens, I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's amazing and beautiful. I listened to that song way too much, and it honestly should have won for Best Original Song over Coco's Remember Me. And those are my thoughts on Call Me By Your Name as a whole. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do not hesitate to hit that like button. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with everything that's going on the channel. Farewell until the next video, moviegoers, movie fans, and casual moviegoers, and keep on being awesome.